Chapter 61. Get up, Roy. What happened next was as Roy expected. Zeron could only escape. The meteor shower had consumed a large amount of his magic power, and he had not recovered much of it, so he did not have the ability to use the spell again. Moreover, even if he could use meteor shower again, it would not have helped. After the Gogs were killed by the approaching elven warriors and the succubi suffered quite a few losses, Zeron felt that he could no longer fight back, so he turned around and escaped. What angered the remaining Deep Abyss demons, big demons, and 4 or 5 succubi was that Zeron ordered them to stop the elves while he escaped on his own. These Deep Abyss demons and big demons roared angrily at this order, but they had to obey Zeron. This was because when Zeron summoned them, they had signed contracts that required them to listen to his orders so that they could participate in the war. At the time, they did not think much of it since the conditions Zeron gave in the contract were very generous. However, they did not expect that in this battle, they did not enjoy the thrill of killing and plundering souls but were instead beaten like dogs. And now, Zeron ordered them to stay behind and delay the enemy, so how could they not be angry? Damn it! Zeron! Don't let me see you in the abyss! A big demon roared angrily as he was killed by the elves and turned into flying ashes. This time, it could be said that Zeron had tricked them. They were all high-ranked demons and did not need to be polite to Zeron, so they all cursed him viciously. Zeron and these high-ranked demons were also enemies, but those succubi, who were angry when they were killed and expelled, did not dare to shout like this. However, Zeron turned a deaf ear to them and continued to run. He used his remaining magic power and teleported away from the battlefield to flee to the rear. To him, he already had many enemies, so he did not care about the number. There was no friendship between demons anyway. As long as he could run away, he could remain in this world and did not need to worry about returning to the abyss and encountering enemies. Roy witnessed this scene with his own eyes through the gaps of the corpses. Had he been silly and had not pretended to die while fighting, it was not difficult to imagine that he would have also had to bring up the rear. In fact, Roy had never believed anything Zeron said. He said that Roy had the bloodline of a high-ranked demon and would take good care of him, but that was purely because he felt that he could make use of Roy, this elite demon. When it truly came to Zeron's own safety, he would not hesitate to abandon all the troops to help him break out. The elves were not careless. After killing and expelling all the demon soldiers, the dragons once again rose into the air. Ryland and the other 2 heroes led their troops to chase after Zeron. This was the heroes of Might and Magic world, not like in the game where they could directly return to their cities as soon as they ran. Among the elven troops, the losses of the dragons were not much, and they still retained powerful maneuverability. Therefore, there was a high chance of chasing down Zeron and killing him. The elves had no intention of letting this arrogant demon go. Although they knew that killing this demon would be difficult without the help of the human angels, and also that it would cost a huge price to kill and expel this demon, they could not let Zeron have his way even if they could not truly kill him. The elves started to give chase with a rumble. However, they could not just leave the bodies of their compatriots on the battlefield, so they left a small group behind to gather their comrades' corpses. Although Ryland knew how to use the resurrection spell, he could no longer resurrect these dead elven warriors because, generally, souls could only stay for a very short period of time after their deaths. After exceeding this time limit, their souls would begin to dissipate. This period of time was so short that Ryland had not had time to restore his magic power and cast this spell. Therefore, it could be said that these warriors had truly died in battle. Dead bodies without souls would only turn into undead even if they resurrected, and then they would become delirious undead. The elves could not bear to let their compatriots turn into undead, so the troops left behind decided to collect the corpses of their compatriots and give them a funeral in the elven way. There were only about 50 people left behind to clean the battlefield. They extinguished the remaining flames on the battlefield and collected the remains of their compatriots. However, there were many who could not even leave their corpses behind and had burned to ashes in the flames, causing these people to grieve. At this moment, a dwarf came to the edge of the battlefield. He saw quite a number of compatriot corpses, so he walked over and carefully pulled apart a group of stacked centaur corpses while shouting to the others to come and help. However, just as he pulled out the body of the first centaur captain, he suddenly saw a dark red spot under the corpses. Before the dwarf could understand what was going on, a savage tail came from behind and pierced straight through him. The dwarfs rushing over to help were shocked. The pile of corpses on the ground was suddenly sent flying, and a tall figure appeared in front of everyone. Demon. Demon? The demon that suddenly appeared from the corpses still had their comrade pierced through on his tail. He had an extremely strong body, and the claws of his hands shone with terrifying light. The demon wings on his back spread open, making him look extremely large. And most importantly, the demon was emitting an uneasy black mist that rose slowly in the air like smoke from a cigarette. His body seemed blurry in this rising black mist, as though light became distorted as soon as it hit him. It was a demon exuding an ominous aura. Roy had appeared. In fact, it was beyond his expectations for the elves to leave some troops to clean up the battlefield. He had thought that the elves would give priority to chasing Zeron, but when he saw them moving the corpses and about to expose him, he had to appear. As soon as he appeared, Roy did not say anything and immediately started killing. He did not believe that these dwarfs would watch him without doing anything, so he simply struck first. With the help of the bloodlust skill on him, Roy's body became even bigger. The dark power of the dark fruit and the blood-red light of bloodlust matched each other, making Roy look especially terrifying. He took advantage of the time the dwarfs had yet to react and flicked his tail, throwing the killed dwarf out and smashing him into two other dwarfs. He mustered all his strength and stomped on the ground, causing a huge pit. With shocking speed, he appeared in front of another dwarf, kicked him off the ground, and then waved his claws, cutting this dwarf in half. "Quick! Kill him!" The dwarfs finally reacted and roared as they rushed at Roy with their weapons. However, how much combat power could troops left behind to clean the battlefield have? Only the height of these dwarfs could cause some trouble for Roy. However, the height difference between them disappeared when Roy placed his hands on the ground and advanced on all four. Roy was already accustomed to killing in the abyss, so he had no mercy at all when he killed these dwarfs. As enemies, if Roy wanted to live, then they had to die. Although Roy was currently a low-ranked demon, his combat strength was not weaker than some middle-ranked demons. In the past, Roy might have been still lacking in defense when facing so many enemies, but the dark fruit's power helped him resist a lot of damage. As long as he could endure the pain, he could fight as he wanted. A black mist vortex appeared in Roy's palm, and then a powerful attractive force appeared. A dwarf farther away from Roy flew up and landed in his palm. Roy held the dwarf's short legs and swung him violently against another dwarf. With a thud, the two dwarfs had their bones smashed into pieces and died vomiting blood. Having the impression of the abilities of the original dark fruit, Roy managed to develop the black vortex move after a few tries. Seeing his companions die tragically, one of the dwarfs roared and threw the hammer in his hand at Roy. However, before it could get close to Roy, it suddenly stopped in midair and then strangely turned back at an even faster speed. It even crushed the head of the dwarf who threw the hammer. This was Roy using psychokinesis. Now, not only could he transform psychokinesis into an air shield, but he could also use it to act directly on the kinetic energy of objects. He could use psychokinesis to stop items and reflect them back, which was equivalent to a repulsion effect. The dark fruit had a strong gravitational force, and psychokinesis could form a repulsive force. This was equivalent to having two force fields. These 50-odd dwarfs did not cause Roy any trouble. 10 minutes later, the battle ended with Roy winning and killing all these dwarfs alone. Unlike in Zeron's demon army back then, where Roy was basically slacking off while fighting, it was different now. Roy was fighting for himself, so of course he had to be serious. After all the dwarfs died, there were no more sounds on the battlefield other than some scattered flames that had yet to extinguish, making crackles. He raised his head and saw many balls of light floating around the battlefield. There were a lot of them. Chapter 62, Transmute. These many souls were actually unexpected to Roy. Zeron had been really reckless. Had Roy been leading the army, his first thought would have been to retreat right away when facing the powerful elven troops that were 3 to 4 times his numbers. But Zeron still wanted to try using magic to reverse the situation. Moreover, he had aimed the meteor shower at the densest place on the battlefield. Thanks to Zeron's magical help, Roy picked up a huge bargain. The souls of demons usually could not remain in another world. After the demons died, the Ouroboros mark would pull the demon souls back into the abyss. As such, all the souls remaining on the battlefield were from the elves. Looking at the densely packed souls, Roy estimated that there were over 1,000 of them. Zeron's big move had likely damaged 1/3 of the elves' military strength. Of course, Roy was not going to stand on ceremony with this unexpected joy. The souls that left their bodies usually died within a couple of hours or so. Depending on the size of the soul, how long it took to dissipate was different, and it had been quite some time since the battle ended. In Roy's demon vision, some balls of light had already begun to disappear, so he hurried onto the battlefield to gather these floating souls into the system. After a while, He finally managed to clean up the souls on the battlefield. He opened the system interface and saw that the number of souls had increased to 1079. Fuck. I'm rich. Not long ago, he had used almost 600 souls, but he did not expect to replenish them again in the blink of an eye and even exceed the original amount. Roy felt as though he had won a lottery. Well, I shouldn't get too excited. I have to first check whether these souls belong to me. Roy quickly calmed down and began to ponder. Zeron isn't dead yet, and neither am I, so that means the demon contract is still in effect. According to the demon contract, 90% of the spoils of war will be handed over to Zeron after winning a battle, but according to the literal meaning, this should refer to a victory. The issue now is if it's considered Zeron's lost. I bet Zeron didn't expect to suffer such a massive defeat. Generally speaking, it was impossible for demons to have the chance to harvest the spoils of war after losing a battle, so when Zeron wrote the demon contract, he did not consider the situation after a defeat and did not give the corresponding explanation. However, Roy realized that something beyond the demon contract had happened. Because he had pretended to be dead and escaped, despite having lost this battle, Roy had still obtained a large number of souls. Even Roy was a little puzzled. What is the current situation considered as? After thinking for a while, Roy finally came to the conclusion that these 1,000+ souls could truly be regarded as his. There was no need to carry out the contract. Because Zeron was still being hunted down by the elves. Perhaps in the demon contract, this could count as the battle not being over, so it was the same nature as when Roy secretly snatched souls in battle. Before the battle ended, the souls he collected from the battlefield were all his. With this thought, Roy finally heaved a sigh of relief. With so many souls in his hands, what Roy feared the most was that it was within the scope of the demon contract's execution. In that case, it would have been terrible and mean that Roy would have had to hand over more than 900 souls. Roy did not know if the souls stored in the system would be forced out of it when the demon contract was executed. He had never encountered such a situation before, so he did not know if the system was capable of isolating the effects of demon contracts. If it really could isolate the influence of demon contracts, then it would really be a treasure, and he could use this isolation function to cheat demon contracts. However, he could not use this opportunity to experiment. After all, if the experiment failed and the system could not isolate the influence of the demon contract, he would have to pay a huge price. Therefore, he could only try experimenting with fewer souls in the future. Now that Roy knew he could use these souls freely, he could carry out his next move. In fact, be it gaining Zeron's trust at the beginning, alienating Zeron and Rashka, writing to the elves on Zeron's behalf, or using the dark fruit to resist damage and escape from the battlefield at the end, Roy's ultimate goal was to kill Zeron in order to tear apart the demon contract. With the chaos on the battlefield, Roy had successfully escaped Zeron's control and did not need to worry about being forced to follow orders anymore. But as long as Zeron was still alive and had not been killed and expelled, the contract would continue to exist and be in effect. In order to invalidate the contract, one of the parties needed to be killed and expelled, and of course Roy was unwilling to die. The longer he was a demon, the more he understood the importance of the soul. He did not want his soul to suffer damage after he was killed. Since he did not want to die, he could only make Zeron die. Now was the perfect time. The letter of challenge had angered the elves, and they were hunting the fleeing Zeron. Roy had achieved most of his goals. Next, as long as he could borrow the hands of the elves and dragons to kill Zeron, he would be free. However, the problem now was whether or not Zeron could escape the pursuit of the elves and dragons. Don't forget, on another route, there was also the high-ranked demon Ignatius, and Ignatius should have many high-level demons in his camp. If Zeron was smart and escaped to meet Ignatius, then the elves and dragons might not be able to do anything about him. Therefore, Roy felt that he could not place all his hopes on the elves and dragons. It would be best for him to intervene when appropriate. Thus, Roy opened the system interface and modified his wings using previous settings. Demon wings, high-speed flight, maximum speed Mach 1. Yes, he modified the definitions of his demon wings, from the simple one where he could only fly before to the highest speed of sound. To better achieve this, he increased the size of his wings and modified their curvature to become smoother. Because they were modifications to the original foundation, he did not need to spend too much time. After Roy chose to save and materialize, he paid the price of 46 souls. In fact, Roy could have increased the speed even more, but he guessed that the faster the flying speed, the higher the consumption of souls. The speed of Mach 1 was probably enough for now, and the price-performance ratio was also very good. After the modifications, Roy's wings quickly changed. The length of the wingspan did not change, but the width had increased. When Roy flapped his wings and flew, he felt that he required much less strength and effort than before. He still remembered which way Zeron had escaped in, so he rushed into the sky and sped up in that direction. He did not fly at Mach 1 speed for now because he was not in a rush to catch up. Zeron would need a lot of time to completely escape the pursuit of the elves, so Roy still had time. While flying, Roy drew in the system interface. On a new, blank page, he drew a cube, then casually drew some patterns on it, and then began coloring it, creating a simple-looking box that opened at the top. Afterward, Roy started to define the box. Horadric Cube. Item effect: transmute low-quality souls into high-quality souls. Yes, this was a design that Roy had thought of recently. To Roy, low-quality souls were easy to obtain, but he could only use them in the system to make static objects and modify his body. He could not use them to create dynamic skills, and the high-quality fallen souls and noble souls used to create skills were not easily obtained. Therefore, Roy had been thinking about whether he could get low-quality souls and high-quality souls to transform into each other. According to Roy's understanding of souls, he felt that this transformation was possible. A fallen soul should contain a large amount of negative emotions and energy. When someone deviated from their conscience and raced to commit misdeeds, it often caused their soul to generate a large amount of negative emotions and energy. When these negative emotions and energy reached a certain extent, their soul would turn black. By the same logic, noble souls should possess great love for others and be willing to sacrifice themselves. These were positive emotions and energy. In fact, low-quality souls contain similar emotions and energy. When any living creature died, they would feel afraid of injuries, fear of losing their lives, hate for the enemy, reluctance to part with their family and friends, yearning for their loved ones, and so on. However, these positive and negative emotions intertwined, and it was impossible to tell which side had more emotions. It could only be regarded as being in balance, resulting in the soul becoming a low-quality soul. Neither noble nor evil, these kinds of souls were just ordinary. Since both emotions and energy were in low-quality souls, why not extract them and transmute them into high-quality souls? What Roy wanted to make was a medium, and it did not matter what the name was. Of course, this box would not be the real Horadric Cube and could only count as a fake. He initially wanted to call it Pandora's Box, but then he thought about the transmute function and decided that it was more appropriate to call it the Horadric Cube. This was why Roy only dared to make this item with a large number of souls in his hands. After all, he was more confident. In order to reduce the consumption as much as possible, Roy only gave it a relatively simple definition. But even so, Roy spent 400 souls to materialize it. It seemed like it was indeed not easy to improve the quality of souls. A quaint box appeared in his hand, and Roy began to experiment with soul transmutation. 1, 2, 3. Only when he put in 198 souls was there a burst of light in the box, indicating that the transmutation was successful. Roy opened the lid and found 2 souls floating out of the box. One was a fallen soul exuding thick black mist, and the other was a colorless, noble soul glowing with light. The reason 2 souls appeared at once was that the positive and negative emotions and energy of the souls within the box were separated and reassembled. According to Roy's setting for the Horadric Cube, 2 high-quality souls would appear every time he transmuted. Chapter 63, What kind of gank is it without flash? It was Roy's first time seeing what a noble soul looked like. He did not expect the first time for such a soul was him transmuting one and not from a human. He originally thought that noble souls would be golden, but now that he looked at one, he realized he was wrong. This noble soul was like a transparent crystal with dazzling color. It looked like gold, and holy souls could only be obtained from holy creatures. As far as holy creatures Roy currently knew, it seemed to be angels. Be it fallen souls or noble souls, the system used them to create skills. Roy had used 198 souls to transmute them into 2 high-quality souls. A high-quality soul was equivalent to 99 low-quality souls, but its use was incomparable to 99 low-quality souls. Customized skills from the system could allow Roy to ignore certain rules. For example, if he wanted to use powerful magic like Zeron, he could directly imitate the magic in the system and make it take shape without needing to learn specialized knowledge about magic, spells, chanting, and casting. He could completely ignore all of that. This was why Roy had not thought of learning it himself, even though he knew formidable magical knowledge existed in the Heroes of Might and Magic world. In theory, Roy could even imitate a powerful spell like Armageddon in the system. Of course, even if he could imitate it, it required the corresponding amount of magic energy to unleash its might. But at this time, Roy did not plan on customizing such attack spells using these two high-quality souls. He had started his plans a few days ago, so he naturally made the materials he wanted in advance. He created two skills this time, and the first one was Flash. Flash, instantaneously move to a position determined by your eyes. Can be used continuously in a short amount of time. In the system interface, the skill Roy made was simple, his body would instantly appear at another location. However, since he had consumed the dark fruit, he added some special effects. The flashing process looked like his body had transformed into a black mist, and then the black mist would appear at another place before his body reappeared. What should he say about this skill? It looked like Nightcrawler's teleportation from the X-Men. The second skill was Teleport. This skill was different from Flash. Flash moved instantaneously over short distances, while Teleport moved long distances. However, since Roy did not know the terrain of this world, he set the location of the teleport to Fat Tiger. In the dynamic demonstration of the skill, Roy's body transformed into a ray of light and then disappeared from where he was before reappearing beside Fat Tiger. This was one of the advantages of creating Fat Tiger. Roy had created Fat Tiger from the system, so he had a spiritual connection with him. Under certain circumstances, he could act separately with Fat Tiger and then rejoin with him through this teleport skill. This way, even if he was summoned to another world, he could use this skill to escape when he faced unfamiliar environments. Some time ago, Roy had made Fat Tiger escort the army supplies. However, due to the elven army surrounding Zeron, Fat Tiger and the equipment he was escorting were unable to approach. Judging from the connection with Fat Tiger, he had not encountered the attack of the elves, but he was now cut off far away from the battlefield. Roy had gotten Fat Tiger to abandon the siege equipment and retreat to the Demon City. If he had to use the teleport skill, he would be able to return to the Demon City in an instant. He created these two skills for escaping. Since he wanted to push ahead, he naturally had to consider the route of retreat. Due to the existence of the Demon Contract, Roy and Zeron were unable to attack the other party directly. In other words, Roy could not directly kill Zeron, and Zeron could not directly kill Roy. However, he could indirectly use the power of others to kill him. What Roy wanted to do now was to use the strength of those powerful dragons to kill Zeron. High-rank demons were indeed very strong. At least in this world, high-rank demons like Zeron were as powerful as dragons. Apart from angels, it was the dragons who had the power to kill high-rank demons. Of course, those powerful heroes could do the same. What Roy had to do now was very simple, go observe the battle. If the elves and dragons could kill Zeron, then so be it. If Zeron was really fierce, then Roy would give a little push in secret. Don't forget, Roy had another skill, Bloodlust. When he defined this skill, Roy had defined it so that he could use it on specified targets. Previously, Roy had only used it on himself and Fat Tiger, but now he intended to use it on those dragons. The 40% increase in strength and speed for Roy was not much because his own strength and speed were not too high, but for those dragons who were already powerful, the 40% increase would certainly be astonishing. It was totally possible to crush Zeron. Of course, it was said that the more powerful a dragon, the more resistant they were to magic. Roy did not know if Bloodlust counted as magic or not and whether it would work on the dragons, so to be safe, Roy modified the Bloodlust definitions and added the Ignore Magic Resistance attribute. In order to have the dragons deal a fatal blow to Zeron, Roy needed to get close to these dragons to use the skill on them. But since Roy was a demon, it was difficult to guarantee that the dragons would not turn around and attack him. Therefore, preparing escape skills was very important. All he needed to do now was to save these three skills. Worried that the two high-quality souls might not be enough, Roy invested another 198 souls and transmuted them into two more high-quality souls. In this way, he had 4 high-quality souls. After using 396 souls for the high-quality souls, 400 souls for the Heradric Cube, and 46 on the high-speed flight attribute of his wings, Roy had spent a total of 842 souls. Roy had obtained more than 1,000 souls, but he only had 232 left in the blink of an eye. Next, if he could fulfill the requirements for the Flash and Teleport skills, he would also need to make a Magic Energy Growth Potion and improve his Magic Energy attribute to ensure that he could use them effectively. Roy did not feel the pain at all. After all, he had spent these souls on himself. The more cards he had, the more confidence he would have. Even if the souls were gone, he could slowly obtain more in the future. It was all worth it. After saving and materializing, Roy found that his flash skill did not consume much. It only needed 1.5 high-quality souls to materialize. However, teleport took 2 high-grade souls. This might be because long-distance movements involved more spatial forces. Space, time, these terms mentioned were naturally high-level powers. Generally speaking, the consumption of souls in the system would also increase, but it was worth noting that the power of souls was, in essence, a high-level power. And most importantly, Roy needed to consume magic energy to use these skills, so the high-quality souls required to create skills would not be consumed like low-quality souls and use hundreds of them. Generally speaking, this was how many souls were needed. Flash and teleport consumed 3.5 souls. The last half was for the modification of Bloodlust. After adding Ignore Magic Resistance, this skill was equivalent to having an added magic penetration effect. In this case, Roy had an idea for when creating skills in the future. The consumption of this magic penetration effect was about half a high-quality soul. As long as he had enough souls, he could even add this definition to all his skills. Finally, Roy turned the remaining 232 souls into a magic energy growth potion. After drinking it, Roy's magic energy attribute increased dramatically, but he felt a bloating in his heart. The flow of blood in his body became faster, and an intense restlessness appeared in him. After a long time, this restlessness finally calmed down. What's going on? Roy could not help feeling puzzled when he sensed the anomaly in his body. When he used the magic energy growth potions in the past, he never had such symptoms. Is it because of my magic energy increasing too much? Since Roy could not get an answer, he could only put it aside temporarily. After completing all his preparation work, Roy accelerated his flying speed. On the way, he tested the use of the flash skill. It was indeed very useful, but it was not really like he could teleport anywhere he looked. The maximum teleportation distance was only 50 meters. With the adaptation of the system, Roy's gaze determined the direction of the teleport. Although he could use it continuously, with Roy's magic energy value of almost 350, he could only use it 3 times because the continuous flashes consumed more and more magic energy. The first flash consumed only 50 magic energy, the second time required 100, the third time was 150, the fourth time. There was no fourth time. Roy's magic energy could only support him using it 3 times in a row at most. However, this was under continuous use. If he used it after a certain interval, the consumption of magic energy was only 50. Chapter 64, 5 Dragon Dismemberment. It did not take long for Roy to see a few black spots appear in the sky. These black spots were naturally the giant dragons flying in the sky. Next to them were some smaller spots, which were the Silver Pegasus Knights of the Elves. The dragons were massive. Roy was only seeing black spots now because he was still a distance away from them. But in fact, if you put Roy next to the dragons and compared them, an adult green dragon would be at least 10 times bigger than Roy. Even those 5 to 6 meters tall demons had to jump to slash at the neck of the dragons. These dragons were not weak, and there were not many species that could match up to them by just relying on their bodies. Of course, Roy would not give chase, so he hung far behind and looked down. Roy saw the elven pursuit force on the ground. Only one elven druid was leading this army. The other 2 heroes seemed to have led the other troops in other directions, and they were not within Roy's line of sight for the time being. The green and emerald dragons were the true main force pursuing Xeron. It was precisely because they were flying closely behind him that Xeron could not get rid of the pursuit in the sky. After Roy observed for a while, the dragons rushed toward the ground, spewed out dragon breath, and then flew back up. In this way, they constantly attacked Xeron, who was running on the ground, leaving him no time to prepare teleport magic to escape. Now, Xeron was in a bind. He could not understand why the elves were constantly chasing after him. In fact, in addition to Roy's letter of challenge that made the elves furious that Xeron actually dared to have the idea of attacking the Gold Dragon Queen, it was also related to the current war situation in Arathia. The Dungeon Lords of Nine and Sandro's undead army were currently attacking the Kingdom of Arathia. It was in a very strenuous situation and had been constantly asking for reinforcements. Therefore, the elves also hoped to drive the demon army away and free up some manpower to help Arathia. If they wanted to do so, then Xeron, the commander of the demon army, definitely needed to die. The dragons were snapping at Xeron's heel tightly, constantly consuming his strength. After he could no longer run, what greeted him was the elven army following behind. Xeron was not stupid. He could tell what the elves were planning, so his escape route was toward where Rashka should have been in the demon army's original battle plan. Now, Ignatius had taken Rashka's place, so he only needed to run to join Ignatius. At that time, not only would he be able to escape the pursuit, but he would also be able to counterattack the exhausted elven army with Ignatius's forces. However, the premise was that Ziron could persevere until then. When Roy arrived, Ziron had been running for a long time now. Even as a high-ranked demon, he felt very exhausted. While running, he could not restore his magic power effectively, and the dragons clearly noticed this. From the beginning, they were only harassing with their breaths, but they gradually began attempting to attack him directly. A gold dragon swooped down and spewed its dragon breath in front of Ziron, forcing Ziron to stop and evade. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the gold dragon stopped flying and landed on the ground, blocking Ziron's path with its huge body. "Despicable lizard! How dare you come down!" Ziron roared as he rushed forward with his demon scythe. In fact, a dragon had tried to stop him in this way earlier, but Ziro had killed and devoured the soul of the green dragon that landed. He had recovered quite a bit of magic power in the blink of an eye. So after that time, the dragons felt that there was no need to fight him head-on and instead continued to harass him. But now, Ziron's physical strength was gradually becoming exhausted, so the dragons made another attempt, and the gold dragon, the strongest in melee combat, landed. Ziron was very clear that if he could not kill this gold dragon quickly, more and more dragons would descend. Thus, he mustered his strength and roared angrily as he slashed at the huge front limbs of the gold dragon. Black hell flames ignited on the sinister demon scythe. With formidable force, it slashed the gold dragon's steel scales, broke through its strong muscles, and cut directly on its bone. The golden dragon suffered a heavy injury and roared fiercely. However, Ziron did not have it easy either. For these kinds of head-on clashes, the smaller demon was naturally at a disadvantage. Although he avoided the dragon claws, he was knocked flying by the impact of the collision. When he landed, Celeron plowed a deep gully in the ground before finally hitting the roots of a large tree and smashing them flying. With a crack, the big tree also broke and slowly fell. Pooh! Ziron quickly climbed up and spat out purplish bloody spit. His demon scythe was stuck in the bone of the gold dragon, so he was empty-handed. But it did not matter. Ziron charged at the golden dragon while it was still burning with the hell flames. He used his demon horns and rammed his head against the abdomen of the gold dragon. In fact, many people did not know that demon horns were not just for decoration. Demon horns would become harder and harder with age. After reaching the level of a high-ranked demon like Ziron, the hardness of their demon horns far surpassed the imagination, and they could even break dragon scales. Demons rarely fought with their horns, and they would use their own soul fragments to make demon weapons instead. They protected and took great care of their horns. But Ziron had no choice but to fight like this now. After all, his demon scythe was stuck in the dragon's bone and very difficult to retrieve. This impact directly pierced a big hole in the gold dragon's abdomen. This place was the position of the dragon's heart, but unfortunately, Ziron's horns were not long enough to reach the gold dragon's heart. Instead of killing the gold dragon with a single blow, a large amount of dragon blood sprayed all over him. Even so, the golden dragon wailed. It could feel itself losing a lot of blood, and it might not recover even after 100 years with such a severe injury. In anger, the gold dragon ignored its injuries, raised a front claw, and smashed down on Ziron. Boom! Ziron could not avoid it and was pounded into the ground. Under the gold dragon's powerful force, countless cracks appeared on the ground, and an explosion of sound rumbled. The gold dragon saw Ziron's entire body sunk into the ground after removing its claw. He lay on his stomach while spitting out large mouthfuls of blood. His bones were hurting so much that they seemed to be splitting. Seeing that Ziron was still alive, the gold dragon raised its front limb again and attempted to step on him. Ziron forced himself to turn over and escaped from the pit. But at this moment, a black shadow flew over and hit Ziron, knocking him directly out of the air. This attack was from an emerald dragon that had just landed. The dragons felt that the time had come and began to descend. They landed one by one and surrounded Ziron. Even the Silver Pegasus Knights followed them, but they only landed at the periphery to block Ziron from escaping. After seeing the dragons land, Roy quickly flew closer. He arrived above the battlefield and looked down, watching them encircle Ziron. "Demon, your death has arrived," said an emerald dragon. "You will pay the price for your evil deeds." Ziron got up while panting. He looked at the dragons surrounding him and the Silver Pegasus Knights waiting in the periphery and suddenly roared. "Never! Don't even think about killing me!" With his roar, Ziron squeezed out every last bit of his remaining magic power. A dense black mist appeared around him, and then his body began to swell. He was overdrawing his magic power in exchange for power. Magic power was not akin to power. It was actually a method of forcefully using magic power to stimulate his heart and increase his power through the accelerated blood flow. In the face of these dragons with high magic resistance, Ziron knew that his remaining magic power would be ineffective, so he simply used it to exchange for power and planned to fight the dragons head-on. Of course, this method had very bad consequences. His body continued to swell, and Ziron's height was almost about to reach that of these dragons. At this moment, he became a giant demon. He roared, rushed forward, clenched his fists high up, and slammed down on the head of the Emerald Dragon. A crack resounded all around. His punch actually cracked the Emerald Dragon's skull. It fell to the ground without a sound, and its body was trembling. Although it did not die, it lost all of its combat power instantly. This scene naturally angered the remaining dragons. They were not any worse than demons in terms of fierce fighting. They did not panic at all and charged at Ziron. The battle was intense, far beyond imagination. Blood splattered into the air as Ziron split the dragon's scales and tore their flesh while dragon's fangs and claws left massive wounds on him. However, the dragons were at a disadvantage overall. Under the powerful stimulation, Ziron's strength was faintly overwhelming these dragons. Moreover, his combat methods were very rich, and he fully exploited the weaknesses of the bodies of these giant dragons to attack them frequently. The Silver Pegasus Knights in the periphery were unable to intervene. Seeing the dragons losing, they were very anxious. But something unexpected happened at this moment. A green dragon suddenly glowed with red light, and the next moment, this green dragon's body began growing. When Ziron punched it, it actually resisted the power of his fist. The green dragon did not think too much about the surging power that had suddenly poured into its body. It opened its mouth, bit Ziron's arm, and then flicked its head, throwing Ziron onto the ground. What happened? Ziron was dumbfounded. Why is this green dragon suddenly so powerful? But before he could figure it out, red lights also appeared on the other dragons around him, and the dragons began to swell. In an instant, Ziron's advantage disappeared. Feeling the great power in their bodies, the dragons were ecstatic. They let out dragon roars and then struck Ziron in unison. Boom! Ziron, who had just stood up, was smashed down by 4 or 5 claws and slammed onto the ground again. This time, Ziron could no longer get up. Under such an immense impact, the bones in his entire body shattered, and even his internal organs were crushed into a mess. However, Ziron still had some consciousness. While lying in the pit, he suddenly thought of something. Red light? Yes. It's that elite demon named Osiris. He used this skill when I summoned him. A green dragon bit Ziron's arm and pulled him out of the pit. When he came out, the other dragons stretched their heads and bit the rest of Ziron's body. Ziron faced the ground and could not look at the sky, but he used his last bit of strength to roar, "Osiris! It's you! It's you, right? I know it's you. If I had known earlier, I would have." What would he have done? No one knew, because before he could finish, the dragons biting Ziron tightened their grips and tore his body into pieces. To vent their frustration of Ziron killing their companions, the dragons used this method to execute Ziron. Ziron died. The parts dangling in the dragons' mouths turned into ashes as a dark mist from the abyss wrapped around Ziron's soul and teleported him away. I really killed Ziron? After the familiar repulsive force of the world appeared on him again, Roy immediately understood that the demon contract had lost its effectiveness. Ziron was truly killed and expelled. Chapter 65, Can Still Stay. Witnessing Ziron's death with his own eyes, Roy could not help but feel relaxed all over. It was hard to believe that a low-ranked demon like him could actually cause the death of a high-ranked demon. Of course, many elements were in play to cause this. Not only because of the war, but also because of Ziron's greed, the infighting among demons, and so on. But in any case, Roy used these elements reasonably and combined them cleverly to achieve his anticipated outcome. Since low-ranked demons could not match up to high-ranked demons in strength, he could only rely on wisdom. The demon contract lost its effect the moment Ziron was expelled, and at the same time, a name suddenly appeared in Roy's mind. Ozariq Rolozelica. Ziron Belosha. Needless to say, this was part of Ziron's true name. Because Ziron died as a summoner, the demon contract determined that he could not fulfill the contract and compensated Roy, the summoned. According to the demon contract, if the summoner died, the demon could collect the soul of the other party. However, the demon contract this time was between demon and demon in another world. The Ouroboros mark protected both of their souls, so no one could obtain the soul of the other. In the end, Roy could only receive part of Ziron's true name as compensation. It was only part of his true name, so it was not very useful. Unless Roy could make use of the demon contract to hoodwink Ziron a few more times, in which case he might be able to gather Ziron's true name. But then again, no matter how stupid Ziron was, he would not give Roy this opportunity. Thinking about it, Roy still did not understand how to use a demon's true name. He only knew that a demon's true name was something that concerned the life and death of the demon and also something that the demon strictly protected, second to only the demon heart. Thus, it was quite difficult to obtain the full true name of a demon. After killing Ziron, the dragons have completed their task. At this time, they also discovered the usual condition of their bodies. The light of the bloodlust skill looked very conspicuous. However, it was obvious that this spell that strengthened them was not from the elves' heroes. In fact, with the magic resistance of the dragons, many low-level spells could not be cast on them. It was the same even for enchantment magic. Therefore, it was very difficult for dragons to enjoy the effect of a buff on the battlefield. But now, an enchantment spell appeared on them. How could the dragons not be shocked? Recalling what Ziron yelled before he died, the dragons realized that someone else had appeared nearby, so they turned their heads and looked around. Finally, an emerald dragon raised its head and found Roy in the sky. It shouted immediately, "There! Damn it! It's a demon!" The dragons were not stupid. They immediately realized that they might have been used by a demon to kill another demon. So the next moment, all the dragons roared and flapped their wings, flying toward Roy in the sky. With the pride of the dragons, how could they accept being enchanted by a demon? Therefore, they did share the concept of the enemy of my enemy as a friend and only wanted to kill that demon in the sky. Roy had already expected this. He was a demon, and no one would think that he was a good demon just because he did something beneficial for them. So when Roy saw the dragons fly into the air, he immediately spread his wings and flew away. Roy flapped his wings and flew at his fastest speed. Roy's speed might not have exceeded the speed of sound, but it was still very fast. The problem was that these dragons still had Roy's bloodlust effect on them. With a 40% increase to their strength and speed, the dragons flew equally fast, and Roy could not get rid of them. Having no other choice, Roy could only use the flash skill. He kept flying at full strength and used flash at certain intervals during the flight. Although he could only pull open a distance of 50 meters each time, Roy could ensure that they would not be able to catch him after a few more times. After the duration of bloodlust ran out, the dragons would not be able to do anything to him. With one side fleeing and one side chasing, both sides flew tens of kilometers in no time. In this kind of chase, the elven troops on the ground could not do anything, and they could only watch as the black spots in the sky flew away. The dragons had been following Roy closely, but they did not expect that after chasing for a while, instead of catching up, they fell farther and farther away. The dragons roared angrily, and a golden dragon even tried to release lightning bolt in order to send Roy crashing to the ground. However, Roy was too fast, and the lightning could not hit him at all. When the light of bloodlust faded away, the dragons immediately discovered that their speed dropped. They knew they could not catch up to this demon, so they could only turn back unwillingly. They planned to report this matter to the Gold Dragon Queen and the elves. After all, they felt like this escaped demon had played them like pawns, and they were very worried that this cunning demon was up to no good. Clearly, Roy, this demon, had attracted their attention. After throwing off the dragons, Roy slowed down, found a mountain, landed, and then sat on a rock to rest. Roy appeared excited to have slipped away from the hands of a group of dragons. These were the famous dragons, and they had always been tyrannical existences in novels. He, a low-ranked demon, actually fooled them once. This was capital to be arrogant and brag. Of course, Roy also knew that he had not found anyone to chat with since becoming a demon, so he could only hold it in his heart without anyone to share it with. During his rest, Roy took a careful look at the current state of his body. He could feel the repulsive force of this world acting on his body, but it was not like in the Van Helsing world, where the repulsive force of that world was very strong. Especially after his contractor, Lucius, died, it had reached its peak and expelled him without giving him any chance to resist. Of course, it also coincidentally allowed Roy to avoid Gabriel's showy attack. The repulsive force in the Van Helsing world was so strong, but the repulsive force in this Heroes of Might and Magic world was rather mild? It was so mild that Roy could barely feel the repulsive force after using a little bit of magic power to resist it. Roy finally understood why after summoning him, Zeron had said that demons could stay in this world for a long time. It was because the repulsive force of this world was very weak. A low-ranked demon like him could resist the repulsive force, so what about those high-level demons? Was it possible to stay in this world as long as they used magic power to resist the repulsive force? Or was it that the longer the stay, the stronger the repulsive force would be? Roy had not tested it, so he did not know. But in any case, this was good news. Even without the demon contract, he could still stay in this world for a while. Roy remembered that Zeron once said that the reason for this phenomenon was because this world had Urgash, the Dragon of Chaos. It was because of Urgash that this world was much more compatible with chaotic and dark powers. But Roy felt that this was probably only one of the reasons. According to his experience, the power of a world's repulsive force would be much more powerful in a low magic world like the Van Helsing world. On the other hand, in this high magic Heroes of Might and Magic world, the elements were full of magic and everywhere, resulting in a very weak repulsive force. This might be because the repulsive force was a world's protective measure to prevent the invasion of creatures from another world. But no matter how powerful the repulsive force was, as long as the creature entering was strong enough, it could still stay. Just like how Gabriel had appeared in the Van Helsing world, he should have used his own strength to enter that world forcibly. Although it looked eye-catching, he must have used up a lot of energy to resist the power of the world. Now that he understood this point, Roy was wondering if he could use his own strength to come to this world when he became stronger. After all, this world had constant wars. Not only could he obtain a large number of souls here, but there were many legendary creatures like dragons, angels, titans, etc. Many questions such as what the souls of these legendary creatures were like, whether the system could use them, and so on could have answers here. To Roy, this world was like a treasure trove filled with rich opportunities. Thinking about this, Roy understood what he had to do during his stay in this world. He planned on thinking of a way to leave a beacon in this world. The teleportation of the Gates of the Abyss was too random, and it was basically guessing what kind of world the summoned would be teleported to. Roy had experienced two worlds. One was the very low magic Van Helsing world, where low-ranked demons were considered powerful existences. The other was the ridiculously high magic Heroes of Might and Magic world, where low-ranked demons were basically at the bottom. This kind of randomness had caused Roy many inconveniences, so he was now thinking about how to designate the teleport destination of the Gates of the Abyss. Chapter 66, Untitled. Let's meet up with Fat Tiger first. After resting for a while, Roy's magic energy was almost fully restored, so he activated the teleport skill on the spot. Light started shining on his body, and then Roy turned into a ray of light and disappeared. The principle of this skill was somewhat similar to the teleportation of the Gates of the Abyss, and the feeling of transforming into light was exactly the same. On a small hill, Fat Tiger was happily enjoying his prey. It was a very strong wild boar, and it was also Fat Tiger's first time catching prey like this. It was quite fierce, and Fat Tiger had taken some effort to catch it. As he learned from his master, Fat Tiger spit out flames from his mouth to roast the wild boar. A strong aroma filled the air, making his three heads bite down eagerly. Fat Tiger was immediately conquered by the delicious taste. Ah! Delicious! Woo! Extremely! Woof! Indeed! There was no such creature in the abyss. Be it demons or monsters, their flesh and bones had a thick sulfur taste that was disgusting even roasted. Now that he had tasted this wild boar, Fat Tiger immediately fell in love with it. Just as Fat Tiger was happily eating away, a pillar of light suddenly appeared beside him, startling Fat Tiger. He immediately jumped out, bared his teeth, and growled with dread. However, a familiar voice came. "Don't worry, Fat Tiger. It's me." Upon hearing the familiar voice and smelling the familiar smell, Fat Tiger's expression immediately changed. All three heads stuck out their tongues, and he started wagging his tail with all his might. As soon as Roy appeared, Fat Tiger immediately moved closer and rubbed against Roy's feet. Roy squatted and rubbed his three heads, causing him to jump around happily. "Oh, you've got something good." Roy smelled the aroma of meat and turned his head to look at the roasted wild boar. His eyes sparkled as he stretched out his hand to pull off a boar hoof and bit into it. The heat control wasn't good. But the taste is still all right. Roy swallowed the meat and sighed with satisfaction. It's been a long time since I've had pork. As a demon, he needed to eat as well. But in the abyss, there was no rice nor braised pork belly. After a while, Roy almost forgot the taste of these foods. He did not expect to taste it now. Moreover, he tasted it after getting rid of the contract with Zeron, so Roy was very satisfied now. Fat Tiger sure was considerate and even knew how to celebrate with his master. One demon and one dog immersed themselves in munching on the food, and soon, a 400-kilogram boar was eaten into a pile of bones. After spitting out the last bone in his mouth, Roy looked around and asked Fat Tiger, "What about your subordinates?" Fat Tiger could understand what Roy said but could not speak, so he pressed his tail between his legs and ran. Roy immediately understood. "Oh, they ran away?" Fat Tiger nodded while wagging his tail. "Is it because Zeron's death caused the demon contracts to collapse?" Roy guessed. After all, demons usually would not obey any orders after losing the restraint of the contract. It was normal for them to escape. Although Fat Tiger was leading the group, he really could not order these demons. "Then, did you run into any enemies?" Roy asked Fat Tiger. Fat Tiger shook his three heads, waving them left and right at the same time. Their synchronous movements made Roy want to laugh. It seemed like the elves had focused on Zeron. Fat Tiger and the rest had been transporting the siege equipment and had separated from the main force, but the elves did not attack and destroy the siege equipment. Actually, come to think of it, the elves had sent 3 heroes to surround Zeron, so how could they still give him the opportunity to attack cities? Without being able to attack cities, the siege equipment posed no threat. Fat Tiger had only brought along a few dozen hellhounds, and it would have been a little too ludicrous for them to specially come to exterminate this small group. After Roy and Fat Tiger's conversation, Roy discovered that Fat Tiger had been leading the hellhounds at a slow speed. Although they had encountered some wild beasts on the way, they had not encountered any elven forces. After Zeron died, the hellhounds abandoned the siege equipment and scattered, and Fat Tiger followed them. However, Fat Tiger left them after receiving Roy's telepathy. Fat Tiger walked along the route that he came from, in the direction to the demon city. Had it been Roy, he would have been lost because he could not remember the way. But because Fat Tiger had a sensitive sense of smell, he could clearly find the return route. This was why Roy teleported to Fat Tiger. Roy would be unable to find the demon city without this little guy. Fat Tiger was constantly growing, and Roy would feed him extra souls, so Fat Tiger's attributes were now much higher than when he was just born. And his fighting prowess was already much stronger than that of the real hellhounds, meaning that Fat Tiger was also a qualified top low-rank demon. After understanding the situation, Roy used his nails to draw on the ground. He roughly marked the location where Zeron encountered the ambush and the location where the dragons killed him after he escaped. He then calculated the approximate location of Fat Tiger's support unit. Finally, he came to the conclusion that he and Fat Tiger might still be in the ambush encirclement of the elves. Roy estimated that the elves had used 2 weeks to set up the plan to ambush Zeron, which was when Zeron had asked for reinforcements from Rashka. After such a long time, the elves' range of movement had already become very large, and they should have cut off Zeron's troops coming from the rear, causing Zeron to have no reinforcements. Fat Tiger and the others were escorting the siege equipment, which was between the main force and reinforcements. After Zeron died, although Fat Tiger ran back a considerable distance, not much time had passed since then, and it was unlikely enough for him to have run out the elves' ambush encirclement. In that case, Roy and Fat Tiger would have to be careful when moving around. They might even encounter elven patrols still in the vicinity. Small-scale patrol units would be no problem. Given Roy's current strength, plus Fat Tiger, they could easily escape as long as the enemies numbered less than 200 and did not have any powerful high-level soldiers. If possible, Roy did not want to escape. On the contrary, he planned to attack these patrols. Since it was a rare chance for Roy to have come to this world, after losing the restraint of the demon contract, Roy was not in a rush to return to the Abyss. He rarely saw demons in groups in the Abyss, so how could it be as efficient as obtaining souls in this world? He had consumed all the souls he had obtained, and Roy wanted to make a beacon and leave it in this world, so he certainly had to think of ways to get some souls. Originally, the best way to make a beacon was to use your own soul fragment to make a demon creation. This way, he could easily locate this world through the special connection between his soul and the soul fragment. However, Roy had seen many soul fragments since he was reborn, so he was very clear about the disadvantages that using his soul fragment would have. If he left a soul fragment in this world, what if someone discovered the demon creation, sensed the demon ore in it, and destroyed the soul fragment? Not only would his beacon be gone, but Roy would also be injured. It would be a huge loss. Therefore, Roy would not easily use his own soul fragments, let alone allow the soul fragments to flow out. Other demons might need to split their soul into fragments, but Roy had the system, so he could use it to create this beacon. Why should he split his soul? "Let's go, Fat Tiger," Roy called out to Fat Tiger after sorting out his thoughts. Chapter 67, Selene Ancient. Over the next few days, news of demons attacking their patrols in the mountains spread continuously among the elves. At first, the elves did not pay much attention to it. After all, their entire territory was now being invaded by demons. Although they had successfully eliminated Xeron and his troops, there were two more high-ranked demons like him. One was Ignatius, and the other was Rashka. Now, the elves were placing their attention on these two demons, especially Ignatius's troops. He had already received news of Xeron's defeat, so he was intensifying his attacks on the elves. Ignatius's troops had too many high-level demons. The elves and Ignatius had fought over the past few days, but neither of them had gotten an advantage. The elves were too busy dealing with Ignatius, so they had not taken the attacks on the patrols seriously. However, they still strengthened their patrols by increasing their size from the original 20 to 40. Any more was impossible. The elves did not have that many troops. These patrols not only investigated intelligence everywhere, but they also attacked the invaders as their mission objective. But something strange happened. Even after increasing their guard, the patrol teams still failed to return. Out of more than a dozen units, there would always be at least one or two units that would not return. There was not even any news. After a while, the elves finally became vigilant. They thought that there might be another demon army attempting to break the encirclement and support Ignatius's and Rashka's demon armies. Therefore, the elves had to send a hero to lead a team in an attempt to find this demon army and think of ways to defeat it. The leader was a druid hero. However, after he led the troops out, he discovered that this demon army had suddenly disappeared without a trace. In fact, when they found the locations of where the patrols went missing, they discovered that the positions were all over the place. There was no pattern to it, and it was impossible to deduce the enemy's movements through these places. Moreover, judging from the battle traces at these places, they seemed to have encountered a sudden attack in an instant. The corpses of the soldiers left at the scenes were also very strange. Their expressions looked terrified, and their bones had been broken inch by inch, almost to the extent of being smashed. Many corpses were deformed beyond recognition. Even their weapons were the same. Much less the wooden bows and arrows, even the hammers the dwarves used were distorted into appalling states. He could not imagine what had happened to these patrol soldiers, but he was certain that the enemy was terrifying. The druid hero asked the forest in hopes of receiving guidance. However, even these trees did not understand the enemy's situation and could not tell where the enemy was going. Finally, without any other choice, the elves could only shrink their forces and reduce the frequency of the patrols scouting. Even when they needed intelligence, they combined the patrols, increased the number of troops, and added high-level soldiers to them. Some Silver Pegasus Knights and Unicorns joined the patrol team as well. In the sky, Roy looked down and saw an elven patrol on the ground. When he found that there were a lot of high-level soldiers in it, he could not help but sigh, knowing that the way he had attacked these patrols to obtain souls was likely coming to an end. With Roy's current strength, Roy was not afraid of Silver Pegasus Knights and Unicorns one-on-one. However, Roy would be unable to deal with them if dozens of Silver Pegasus Knights and Unicorns surrounded him. Although it was impossible for them to catch Roy with his flash skill, if he could not completely eliminate these patrol troops, the elves would know about his situation. They would think of the demon that appeared on the battlefield where Xeron was killed and might send dragons to deal with him. Therefore, Roy could only give up hunting for the time being. However, he had attacked many patrols during this time and obtained quite a number of souls, and it should be enough to make a beacon. Most importantly, he had developed one of the dark fruit abilities, Black Hole. After he spread out the power of the dark fruit and released darkness on the ground around him, the darkness would drag in anything within this range. After pulling things in, the powerful gravity in the darkness would compress and crush them. If he did not have the strength to resist this force, he would have become like the elven patrol soldiers, crushed until every inch was broken. Roy had carried out his ambushes on the patrols by diving down directly into their formation and immediately opening Black Hole to suck them in. This raiding method prevented the patrol teams from even releasing their carrier pigeons. After the soldiers died, Roy released their corpses from Black Hole and harvested their souls. In this way, even the forest could not find his trail. However, Roy was not with a demon army after all. Facing so many enemies, he could only stop his actions temporarily. Roy waved at Fat Tiger, who also had his wings spread beside him, and carried Fat Tiger away with him. Roy flew quite a distance while carrying Fat Tiger before finding a place to land. It was still within the forest, but there was no other choice. Fortunately, it was far from the battlefield, so Roy felt it would be fine. After stopping, Roy brought Fat Tiger to a big, thick tree to rest. This tree looked very old, but it was still lush. It had to be said that the elves protected the plants in their territory well. Fat Tiger ran out to hunt wild boars. His favorite food recently was wild boars. There were many wild boars in this forest, so Fat Tiger seldom returned empty-handed. Roy leaned against the trunk of the big tree and opened the system interface to prepare to make the beacon. In total, he had hunted tens of patrol teams and obtained almost 400 souls. According to Roy's calculations, if the beacon did not possess the ability to open a teleportation gate but simply sent a signal of its position to Roy, he should have enough. Only, what should a beacon be like? Before Roy could decide, he suddenly found the ground trembling. At first, Roy thought that it was an earthquake, but he soon realized that the trembling came from the big tree he was leaning against. Roy immediately jumped up and turned around to defend himself because he knew that the elves had dendroid guards, and any tree could become an enemy. However, what Roy did not expect was for the big tree to slowly form a human face on its thick trunk. With the wrinkly bark, this face looked especially old. Someone came again. The ancient tree slowly looked at Roy. "Oh, I didn't expect it to be a demon." Roy did not say anything and merely looked at the tree with caution. After finishing speaking, the old tree remained silent for a while before saying, "Okay, it doesn't matter if it's a demon. The inheritance of knowledge is great and should have no racial distinctions. So, demon, what do you want to ask me?" Seeing the anticipation on the ancient tree's face, without any intention of attacking, Roy could not help but relax and ask curiously, "Who are you? Or what are you?" "Me?" The ancient tree replied, "I don't know who I am. I have no name, but I'm a Sylana's Ancient. Don't you know?" Sylana's Ancient? Roy was shocked as well. He did not expect to meet a Sylana's Ancient. In the game, a Sylana's Ancient could allow visiting heroes to level up, but here was the real world, so he did not know what function the Sylana's Ancient had. He asked, "You said I could ask you a question?" "Yes, I am a Sylana's Ancient, the tree that lives the longest. Over the years, I have come to know many things," the ancient tree said in an old voice. "Any traveler who passes by likes to seek help from me. They hope to use my knowledge to help them solve the doubts in their hearts. In return, they will chat with me about some of their journeys so that I can absorb fresh knowledge. In my long life, I have also encountered other demons like you, and they have spoken of the world they live in, the Abyss. I am also curious about your world." "Any question?" Roy asked. "Yes. As long as it's something I know, I will tell you," said the Sylana's Ancient. "I just hope you aren't like the demons I encountered before. After asking me, they always wanted to kill me." "But since you still exist, it means those demons didn't succeed," Roy said. "Of course, knowledge is power," the Sylana's Ancient said proudly. "Those stupid demons don't seem to know this." Although he was mocked by the Sylana's Ancient, Roy did not care. He only needed to know that this ancient tree seemed to be very powerful. "Come, ask me a question," the Sylana's Ancient said in anticipation. "Similarly, I'm looking forward to the experiences you've had on your journey." "What should I ask?" Roy pondered when a thought came to mind. "Perhaps I can use this Sylana's Ancient." Chapter 68, A Mysterious Number. "Don't you have any questions that you want answered?" Looking at this demon in front of it that seemed to be in a daze, the Sylana's Ancient could not help but urge him. "I won't be awake for too long." Okay. Then I'll ask you a question." Roy used his fingers to draw on the system interface while asking the Sylana's Ancient absent-mindedly, "My question is, do you think the world you're in is real?" Upon hearing this question, the Sylana's Ancient was stunned. After a long time, he replied, "Of course, I think this world is real." "Really?" Roy did not stop his movements as he continued to ask, "Have you ever wondered about whether the world you live in is a world that some person fantasized? It could originate from a novel, a story, or even a segment of a script, and even the characters in this world are similar to the ones in the fantasy. If so, would you still think that your world is real?" In fact, this was a real doubt that Roy had. Seeing the Sylana's Ancient urging him to ask a question, Roy could not help but reveal this. However, What surprised Roy was that the Silanus Ancient did not think further and immediately replied, "I think the world is still real." Roy's fingers paused for a moment. "Why do you say that?" "Ha ha!" The Silanus Ancient burst out laughing. "You're really an interesting demon. You're different from all the demons I've encountered. They only ask me questions about killing and destruction, but they've never asked something like this. Perhaps it's as you said, and the origin of the world comes from some person's fantasy, but what does it matter? The world is real because we can feel our existences. When we can breathe the air, sense the firmness of the land, feel the heat of the sun, and see the changes of the four seasons, it's real." Roy carefully pondered over the meaning of this sentence and did not speak for a while. After a long time, he nodded at the Silanus Ancient and said, "I've learned. You really make sense." The Silanus Ancient laughed loudly, seeming to be very happy that he could help someone answer their doubt. "Okay, I've answered your question. Next, in exchange, it's your turn to tell me about you," the Silanus Ancient said. "Whether it's about you, the demon world, or even your experiences with killing, you can share it with me." These words made Roy feel that the Silanus Ancient was basically a lonely old man that would catch anyone and chat with them. Actually, come to think of it, trees were different from humans, elves, and demons. They could only stay rooted in a fixed place and could not roam around. However, Silanus Ancients were a very long-lived tree species. For hundreds and thousands of years, they had to stay in the same place. No wonder every time they encountered intelligent creatures, they wanted to chat with them. "Okay, how about this?" Roy sat down in front of the Silanus Ancient. "I'll tell you about my current experiences." While speaking, Roy suddenly had something in his hand. It was a small crystal ball with a golden luster inside, and in the middle was a five-pointed star. "What is this?" The thing in Roy's hand immediately caught the attention of the Silanus Ancient. "Ahem. This is..." Roy hesitated before saying with thick skin, "This thing is a Dragon Ball." "Dragon Ball?" The tree crown of the Silanus Ancient swayed gently, making the leaves rustle. He asked strangely, "Is it something related to dragons? I've seen many dragons, but I've never heard them mention this." "Ah. This Dragon Ball has nothing to do with dragons," Roy said. "I found it by chance. I checked many ancient books before knowing its name." "Oh? Is it something very old?" The Silanus Ancient was completely attracted by Roy's words. "Yes. It's so old that many people don't know its background." Roy's face became thicker and thicker as he spoke. "According to the records, there are a total of 7 Dragon Balls, and the number of stars in them is from 1 to 7. Roy raised the crystal ball and showed it to the Silanus Ancient. "Do you see? The one in my hand only has 1 star in it." The Silanus Ancient understood immediately. "So, there are those with 2 stars, 3 stars, and so on?" "Yes." Roy fully entered the state. With a serious expression and a little anticipation, he said, "According to the legends, these Dragon Balls were created by the Dragon God." The Silanus Ancient interrupted before Roy could finish speaking. His bark face was full of shock as he said, Wait. You said these Dragon Balls were made by the Dragon God? Which Dragon God? Is it Asha, the Dragon of Order, or Urgash, the Dragon of Chaos?" His question stunned Roy. "Fuck, how did it end up with the Dragon of Order and the Dragon of Chaos? I was just trying to fool you. Why are you so serious?" Roy could only say, I don't know either. There were no detailed records in the books." The Silanus Ancient sighed. "That's true. If these Dragon Balls were really made by the dragons of creation, then it'd be great. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have interrupted you. Go on." "The 7 Dragon Balls are scattered in all corners of the world," Roy said. "They have no effect when they are alone, but when the 7 Dragon Balls gather, if you recite an incantation, it is said that you can summon Shenrong. Shenrong will fulfill the wish of anyone who gathered the Dragon Balls. Any wish." The Silanus Ancient was dumbfounded, and his leaves rustled. He was completely shocked by the legend Roy mentioned. Roy did not create real Dragon Balls at all, but just beacons. Beacons could be anything, and Roy made them look like the 7 Dragon Balls to prevent a single beacon from being destroyed or lost. When he designed them, the definitions he added made the 7 Dragon Balls as hard as possible, and after gathering them, the positioning signal would increase to the maximum. His original intention was to leave these 7 beacons in this world, come up with a legend, and then borrow the mouth of the Silanus Ancient to inform the people of this world. This way, maybe someone would intentionally collect these Dragon Balls and save them. This process of gathering them would definitely not be easy, and it would take a long time. This would also give Roy plenty of time. After all, he needed to wait until he was stronger before entering this world again. The level of a high-ranked demon was not necessarily safe, and perhaps he needed to be above that. However, what Roy did not know was that the legend he made up caused the Silanus Ancient to misunderstand. He truly believed it because legends about the era of the seventh dragon had always been circulating in this world. According to the creation legend of this world, the primordial chaos gave birth to twin dragons. One was the Asha, the dragon of order, and the other was Urgash, dragon of chaos. Asha created the six elemental dragons, while Urgash created the demons. The primordial twins had an all-out war, and after the dragon of order defeated the dragon of chaos, she secluded herself to recuperate. The history of the ancient world had been forgotten by future generations, but the six elemental dragons that Asha created began to be worshipped by the people of the Ashan world. Finally, a wizard named Sarilan became the first human to come into contact with the consciousness of the Dragon of Order. The Dragon of Order then bestowed upon him knowledge of the nature of matter, spirit, and the higher path of power. Enlightened by his new understanding, Sarilan ascended to become the seventh dragon. Sarilan's ascension started a new age in the world of Ashan, the year of the seventh dragon, and he informed the world about the ancient history and let the world recall the dragons of creation. Therefore, after hearing Roy's story, the Silanus Ancient immediately linked the 7 Dragon Balls to the era of the seventh dragon. He even thought that if these 7 Dragon Balls were not created by Ashan or Urgash, they could have been created by the 6 Elements Dragons and Sarilan. After all, the number 7. If Roy knew what the Silanus Ancient was thinking, he would probably be dumbfounded. Speaking of which, this number 7 was really a very magical number. The 7th day after people's deaths, people had the 7 emotions and the 7 apertures, the 7 days of the week, the 7 fairies, the 7 dwarfs, the Chisi festival on the 7th day of the 7th month, the 7 Dragon Balls, the 7 stars of the Big Dipper, and so on. It was too coincidental. Even though the Silanus Ancient had never heard of the 7 Dragon Balls in his long years, he still believed it the first time Roy mentioned it to him. When Roy told him that he was trying to find other Dragon Balls and gather all 7 to summon Shenrong, the Silanus Ancient excitedly asked Roy what the incantation to summon Shenrong was. Of course, Shenrong could not be summoned, so Roy could only tell him that the incantation was lost. What a magical treasure! The Silanus Ancient sighed. Perhaps, it is the most powerful treasure in history? Demon, you're really lucky to be able to obtain one of the Dragon Balls. Looking at the Silanus Ancient's emotional expression, Roy scratched his head. Is he fooled? After becoming a demon, did I awaken a talent for deceiving others? Roy stayed here for a while, waiting until Fat Tiger returned from hunting and having his fill before bidding farewell to the Silanus Ancient. Looking at Roy's departing figure, the Silanus Ancient was unable to restrain his emotions. He did not expect this demon to be able to tell him such a secret. He felt that his knowledge base that had formed over thousands of years was once again enriched, so he was very excited. Oh, maybe I can share this news with others. The Silanus Ancient murmured to himself. Although this demon is not bad, it's better not to leave such an important thing like the Dragon Balls in the hands of a demon. It's decided. I'll pass on this news when I meet the next traveler. Therefore, the Silanus Ancient was basically a big mouth, and everything was as Roy expected. Chapter 69, Return. On the way, Roy played with the 7 Dragon Balls in his hand, making collision sounds. Fat Tiger's 6 ears moved, and he looked back from time to time at his master. Creating the Dragon Balls in the system consumed about 20 souls each, which was not much, but the 7 added up to a total of 140 souls. The Dragon Balls Roy created did not have much use other than constantly sending out a signal on a special frequency. Roy even made the Dragon Ball radar as a receiving device to show the strength of this signal. Roy also added the definition of resonance to the Dragon Balls. This attribute would increase the output signal when the Dragon Balls were close to each other. According to Roy's vision, this signal could transmit to the Abyss when gates of the Abyss were opened and then received by the Dragon Ball radar. This way, since there were people summoning demons all the time in this world, the gates of the Abyss would open frequently, and the signal would not be broken. When Roy wanted to enter the Heroes of Might and Magic world again, he could find it through the signal. Of course, the next time he entered the Heroes of Might and Magic world, Roy hoped to open a gate of the Abyss with formidable strength instead of being summoned over. If Roy could reach this stage, it meant that he was already sufficiently powerful, and he would not need to worry too much about encountering a strong enemy in this world. This world was still considerably dangerous. After saying goodbye to the Silan's Ancient, Roy wanted to fly for a while. But unfortunately, a fire phoenix flew by, forcing Roy to walk on the ground obediently. While walking, Roy was thinking about how to spread the 7 Dragon Balls everywhere. He initially wanted to add the flying attribute to the Dragon Balls to spread them out but decided against it. After enhancing himself with Bloodlust, he used his greatest strength to throw 4 Dragon Balls to the southeast and northwest. Roy knew that it was actually not too far away, and he could have only thrown them a few kilometers, but it did not matter. He had never thought about letting these Dragon Balls cross the ocean to another continent. The Dragon Balls were just beacons in the first place, and they could still send a signal like this. Roy did not care whether or not others would pick them up in the future. With the remaining 3 Dragon Balls, Roy got Fat Tiger to catch a few wild boars, shove them down the wild boars' throats, and then let them go. This way, they would run around with the Dragon Balls. If other beasts ate them, these Dragon Balls would transfer to the beasts and continue to spread out. He did not know how long it would take the Silan's Ancient to spread the news of the Dragon Balls, nor how long it would take someone to gather these Dragon Balls. Roy felt that it would be at least a few years. The time flow of the Abyss seemed to be inconsistent with these other worlds. So while a few years might sound long, maybe when Roy just barely returned to the Abyss, a lot of time would have passed here. As such, Roy felt that he did not need to care too much about the time factor. Moreover, even if someone really managed to gather the Dragon Balls within a short time, he could choose not to come. He placed these beacons here in order to hunt souls and raise his strength, not to become a dragon god that satisfied the wishes of the people who gathered the Dragon Balls. Because the demon army had marched for about a month and a half, returning to the demon city was a very long distance. However, it was not boring on the way back, and he saw a lot of the diverse ecosystems of this world. As they passed by a swamp, Roy and Fat Tiger were attacked by a group of dragonflies. At the bottom of a cliff, Fat Tiger caught a few cavemen in a dark cave. While searching for firewood at night, Roy found a stray dark elf camp, and a group of dark elf assassins attacked him, but they were instead killed by Roy. In the sky, he could frequently see ferocious birds, thunderbirds, fire phoenixes, and dragons. These creatures were the overlords of the sky in this world. Although Roy and Fat Tiger had wings and could fly, they rarely flew in order to avoid unnecessary battles. There was an endless stream of such creatures along the way. These creatures usually stayed away when the demon army traveled, but it felt as though they were emerging one after another now. A lone demon like Roy was basically the target they wanted to attack. It couldn't be helped. Demons were enemies to almost all races in this world. After all, they were alien creatures. Among the various creatures Roy encountered, he hated the undead the most. These wild undead were usually formed by the contamination of dark power after their deaths. Without intelligence, they just instinctively attacked every living creature. Roy could not obtain any souls from killing these undead, and it was just a waste of effort. However, these wild undead were very common. Who knew in which remote place they would suddenly appear? It was simply frustrating. On the way, Roy either hunted other creatures, or they attacked him actively. As time passed, Roy slowly accumulated quite a number of souls. Other than feeding a small number to Fat Tiger to accelerate his growth, Roy used the rest to make magic energy growth potions. He did not know how much magic power it would require to activate the teleportation formation in reverse, so it was naturally necessary to prepare some magic energy growth potions. What was worth mentioning was that after Roy used a magic energy growth potion, that strange feeling appeared in his body again. Compared to the previous time, the heat in his body was more intense, and he could feel his heart throbbing rapidly. After this situation appeared again, Roy did not dare to continue using magic energy growth potions, and he stored the potions he made for the time being. He guessed that this might be because the amount of magic power that his body could hold was about to reach the limit, causing such strange symptoms. Actually, it made sense. Roy's current magic energy attribute had reached almost 400, almost all of which he had gained through magic energy growth potions. According to the extraction efficiency of the potion, his 400 points in magic energy was equivalent to what other low-rank demons could achieve after consuming 700 to 800 souls. Based on what Roy knew, many low-rank demons were instinctively hunting souls to devour as one of the conditions to promote. Once they reached a certain extent, they would probably have to seek a way to break through because they reached a bottleneck in the amount of magic power their bodies and bloodlines could contain. This method was to go lower in the abyss to find a place of refinement and purify their bloodlines. This was how to promote to middle-rank demon. Although Roy did not have any inherited memories of this promotion, he slowly figured it out after coming into contact with other demons. There were different complexities in the bloodlines of low-rank demons. Some of them had purer bloodlines, so the upper limit of magic power they could accommodate was higher. The number of souls they needed to hunt was in the thousands, which led to them staying longer in the upper abyss, becoming the old demons that Roy had seen. Similarly, some of the low-rank demons have complex bloodlines, and the limit of magic power they could contain was lower. So after devouring a few hundred souls, their magic power reached a bottleneck. Roy guessed that he was likely the second type. According to the system, Roy's demon bloodline was rather complex. In addition, he had improved his magic energy through potions, so he had advanced to the point where he needed to promote so quickly. On the way, Roy was wondering if he should make a refining potion to use on himself. This way, he could complete his promotion even without heading lower into the abyss to find a place of refinement. However, after giving it some thought, Roy decided against it. He had yet to understand the principle behind the refinement. Would it only purify one of the bloodlines, or did it mean that all the bloodlines could promote? After all, according to genetics, there were always genetic factors that were dominant in complex bloodlines, while some were recessive. Some dominant ones were not necessarily useful, while the recessive ones were not necessarily useless. When the refinement process purified the bloodline, would it purify the dominant or reveal the recessive? Roy needed to understand all of this. If he rashly made his purification potion, he might mess it up. Therefore, after returning to the abyss, Roy decided that he would head lower into abyss to find a place of refinement and observe how it worked for those demons who were promoting. At that time, he would slowly consider whether he should use a place of refinement to complete his promotion or use the system to make a potion to promote. In this way, after spending a few weeks walking, Roy was finally led by Fat Tiger back to the volcano where the demon castle was. Chapter 70, Middle Abyss. This demon city built by Xeron detonating a volcano did not seem to have a name. To the demons, it was only an outpost for attacking Erathia. It was on the border, and with the extension of the front lines, reinforcements from this city would become slower and slower. In other words, this city, in Xeron's original plan, was going to be abandoned. Precisely because of this, when Roy returned to this city, there were no high-rank demons stationed in it, and only a few little demons were left in this city. When he left, Ignatius did not bring these little demons, leaving them as coolies and defense forces. From this, it was apparent that the demons would abandon this place in the future. Because he was also a demon, Roy entered the demon city smoothly. Some of the little demons here had seen Roy before and knew that he was Xeron's adjutant. Although they did not know what Roy wanted to do by coming back alone, with the temperament of demons, they would not ask too much. When Roy found that there were no middle-rank and high-rank demons in the city, he felt more at ease and headed straight for the location of the summoning formation. During his journey back, Roy found that the repulsive force of the world seemed to have increased a little. It seemed like it was true that the repulsive force would continue to strengthen over time. And in order to resist the repulsive force, the consumption of Roy's magic energy was also gradually increasing. Maybe in the end, Roy's magic energy would not be enough to resist this force, and he would be expelled. The stronger demons might be able to stay in this world for a longer time, but no matter how long, they would still be eventually expelled. Therefore, high-rank demons like Xeron and Ignatius were even willing to sign a demon contract with the people of this world to work for them in order to stay in this world for as long as possible. And this contractor was the King Lucifer Cregan they had been talking about. Roy did not know who this person was, and it was impossible for him to see him. However, it was clear that someone who could make high-rank demons swear loyalty to him was not an ordinary person, and he might really be Lucifer's incarnation. But because of Roy's plan, Xeron was killed in advance and expelled back to the abyss. This would inevitably affect the demon army's invasion of Erathia. He approached the summoning formation and carefully compared the design of the magic formation with the one that he had seen Xeron draw before. After confirming that there was no error, Roy began inputting magic power into the summoning formation. Generally speaking, the design and text of magic formations were fixed and had specific functions. If you had a ready-made magic formation, you only needed to input magic power. To put it another way, such magic formations were like home appliances, and you could use them after turning the power on. The purpose of the magic formation engraved in the demon city was to open a gate of the abyss, connect with an altar in the abyss, and teleport demons over from the other side. Such teleportations were generally unidirectional. Similarly, if Roy wanted to teleport back, the gate of the abyss he opened would also be a unidirectional teleport. As such, there was no need to worry about colliding with other demons that were incoming. Roy followed the magic power input method Zeron used when he summoned the high-level demons and reversed it, activating the pattern in the middle of the magic formation before gradually extending to the outer circle. This was the so-called reverse input of magic power. Roy lacked knowledge about magic formations, and he did not know if what he was doing was right, so he was just trying. Fortunately, he succeeded, and the magic formation began to glow and gradually activate. Actually, it was not that Roy was fortunate. The magic formation that connected with the abyss had gradually turned into a fixed form after millions of years. After all, demons sometimes needed to teleport themselves back, so this common magic formation had the functions of summoning and reverse summoning. As the gate of the abyss opened and black mist permeated the air, Roy could not help but think of the dark fruit just by looking at it. In a sense, when I activate the power of the dark fruit, it looks very similar to the black mist. The dark fruit also has space abilities, which is the black hole that can suck in objects. Does this mean that the dark fruit can connect to other worlds like the gates of the abyss? Roy gave it some thought before putting it aside for the time being. After opening the gate of the abyss, Roy did not enter rashly, but he got Fat Tiger to catch a little demon. Fat Tiger was extremely fierce in front of these little demons. Not to mention the little demons, even those genuine hellhounds could not defeat Fat Tiger now. Upon receiving Roy's command, Fat Tiger immediately jumped at a little demon passing by. He threw the little demon onto the ground and bit the back of the little demon's neck, but did not use much strength. After Fat Tiger bit this little demon, it wanted to resist, but it immediately did not dare to move as Fat Tiger brought it back to the magic formation. Roy found a metal chain. Not wasting any time, he immediately grabbed it, tied it tightly, and attached the camera to the chain. Roy had, of course, made this camera in the system. After setting it to take pictures automatically, Roy grabbed the other end of the chain and threw the little demon into the gate of the abyss with his other hand. He needed someone to explore the way to determine if the other side was the abyss. After throwing the little demon, Roy held the chain and waited a while before pulling it back. However, regrettably, teleportation was one way. Roy could not pull the little demon back even with the metal chain tied to it. He could still feel it on the chain earlier, but when Roy started pulling the chain back, he felt the other end of the chain suddenly become empty. When Roy pulled all of the chain back, he saw that the little demon had actually disappeared without a trace. Something with no life like the chain was fine, and even the camera was still on it. Roy picked up the camera and checked the pictures. He heaved a sigh of relief. The scene in the pictures was indeed the scene around an altar of the abyss. In other words, there was no problem with this gate of the abyss. Roy only needed to enter and not turn back. The reason the little demon disappeared was probably that it was lost in the chaotic space. "Let's go back, Fat Tiger." Roy called out to Fat Tiger, and then one demon and one dog entered the mist of the gate of the abyss together. The light changed. When a spacious area suddenly appeared in front of him, Roy found himself on an altar with Fat Tiger by his feet. However, he did not know where he was or if it was the upper abyss. In addition, he did not know how far away the altar that originally summoned him was. There were no other demons around the altar. After Roy and Fat Tiger left the altar, the magic formation stopped, and the gate of the abyss gradually closed. After spreading his wings and flying away from the altar with Fat Tiger, Roy quickly obtained good news. This good news was that it was indeed the upper abyss because Roy had already seen a few low-ranked demons appearing nearby. Given the strict hierarchy of demons, it was impossible for low-ranked demons to live in the deeper abyss without promotion. But what was slightly troublesome was that Roy did not find any familiar scenery nearby, and he seemed to have been teleported to a strange place. The abyss was simply too vast. It could hold tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of demons, so how vast would that be? Roy did not think too much about it. He carried Fat Tiger as he began to search for a way to the lower abyss. There were more paths than just one, and magma rivers often showed the way. This was easy to understand because magma rivers would fall deeper into the center of the world with gravity, and the deeper into the world, the lower the abyss. Roy had to promote now. First, being a low-ranked demon was truly too restricting. Second, his magic energy had reached a bottleneck, and he no longer dared to use magic energy growth potions, fearing that he would explode and die. In the following days, Roy brought Fat Tiger and searched for an entrance to the lower abyss. But it was rather difficult to find because even if you flew hundreds or thousands of kilometers along a magma river, you might not be able to find the end, let alone these magma rivers might not even lead to the lower world. After more than a month of searching, his efforts were not in vain. After flying hundreds of kilometers along a magma river, Roy suddenly saw a huge fissure in front. This fissure was about 5 kilometers in length, seeming to have formed after an earthquake. The magma river cut off at the fissure, and the fiery hot lava fell down here, turning into a lava waterfall. When Roy flew above and looked down at this fissure, he found that it was deep and bottomless. He could only see a fiery red light spot, which was the light from the magma. "Is it here?" Roy thought as he slowly flew down with Fat Tiger. 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers. Roy did not know how long he flew for, how deep he had gone, before he gradually saw the fissure begin to narrow. When Roy finally emerged from a hole tens of meters wide, a vast space suddenly appeared before his eyes. Compared to the upper abyss, the space here was much darker. This was because the cave walls here did not have moss-emitting light. As soon as he entered, Roy could not see far. Demons had dark vision, and it seemed that it had evolved in response to this dark environment. While adapting to the dark environment, Roy had a very exhausting feeling in his wings. It was not because he had flown for too long. In fact, the vertical distance was about 10 to 20 kilometers, not too deep. Roy's wings felt exhausted because the gravity here was stronger than in upper abyss. Under this gravity, Roy's body became heavy, and every flap of his wings required more effort, so how could he not feel exhausted? Is this the middle abyss? I should call it that, right? Roy thought.